like this show.
So I've been watching Jack and Jellyfy ever since the whole BFDIA 6 debacle from like 2015 or something. The issue with discussing this now is that I'm technically an adult just by law. So there's an issue. Are you an adult or are you a adult? And I don't know which one I am. Discussing family media is so much harder now because you can never really accept what it is. There's so many of these grown-ass people who are discussing trolls like it's genuinely heart-wrenching, and it just confuses me so much. And then you have all these morons who just keep posting that SpongeBob picture thinking that they're smart. Okay, that doesn't count, I can never be wrong. But there's a little bit of a background on why I feel like Tpot was having a few issues around the recent episodes. Like, is this taking itself way too seriously with the zombies and all that? Like, one of the biggest problems with this series altogether, I believe, is just trying to balance out the tone, because you know it's a very just silly kind of show ever since the start, where physics constantly break and everyone is just ridiculous all the time. I really liked BFB, but there was a lot of melodrama that made some of it hard to watch, and I feel like they're starting to hone that more properly now with Tpot, now that they actually know what they're doing with this whole drama deal. I guess that's the benefit of having multiple shows, so you can like do multiple different things at once. This is more like drama oriented, as they've stated, and now the whole BFDIA thing is kind of continuing where they left off forever ago, and being more like just a morbid comedy overall. I really love what they've been doing with that recently, though. And I guess the only issue with that is that it messes with the IDFB canon, but otherwise it's... I love it. Not as much as Tpot, of course, but I'm really glad they're doing it. And this is the best part of Tpot right now, is that everything's finally starting to be fleshed out. Characters are starting to become more important, 2 is actually becoming more valuable and less pointless, and the series is maturing in a way that actually matters. Sure, we can still have all the wacky, absurdist plots, but now the characters are legitimately growing and learning and maturing and talking it out, and we get so much information about them without any just unnecessary exposition all the time. And the best part is it's not as contrived as like the zombie episode, which once again I want to say I do kind of like that episode, but not for those reasons. I think Tpot's about to leave its identity crisis because for the longest time it really didn't get what it was trying to do. This feels like the spark for the show. Like, this is where they're gonna start really getting into the characters and just dissecting them. Their insecurities, what just drives them. We're gonna really start learning about the cast as we go, and it's gonna feel a whole lot less contrived than it did before, now that we have a bit of an understanding on what Tpot is trying to achieve, and the way it's slowly adapting to that landscape. I guess it helps that BFDIA is being made right now, and that kind of helps make a bit of a setup for what Tpot is, and while they're completely different shows, they really complement each other despite being so far apart from each other during their timelines. It's all really starting to connect in a really satisfying way, and while some of it does feel off or a bit in BFDIA trivia, in BFDIA 11, Lots of Mud, Pin gets her face removed, and has to communicate with her team in unconventional and odd ways, like sweating to indicate danger. This is a very clear allusion to the 1939 novel, Johnny Got His Gun. Consistent. There's a lot to really like about what they're doing with this franchise. There's probably not a whole lot else I can really say, although I guess for a few extras I did like that the recommended character was introduced right at the start, so they're a bit less disadvantaged. You might have noticed that recommended characters tend to struggle since they're like halfway through the shows, and as a result they're kind of treated worse by fans. And it feels nice how much they stand out, really. I think I started loving Price Tag the moment this happened. And Winter is just slowly becoming more and more interesting, especially as a result of this new episode. I really like how they just ran with the whole dream scenario trope as well, because this is rarely ever used in an interesting way, and they just kind of indulged, and I'm really glad they did. I almost wanted more. I can kind of understand why this couldn't run forever, but I was just so enthralled by what they had to show with Barfbag and Black Hole and Clock. They're already generally really likable characters, and this just brings them up even more. The way they've been doing this has just made me excited for new episodes because you never really know what's going to happen next. Of course, this does potentially mean there could be some rougher episodes, but I don't think that'll really matter in the grand scheme of everything that's been made here. And I'm also really glad they've been giving every single character a chance. I love what they've been doing with Robot Flower, really differentiating her. Although I wouldn't have really minded a second Flower Girly ever, because, come on, she's literally me. You just have to trust me on that. But yeah, thank you for listening to this on the background, because I just needed to get it out, and for those, like, long-time listeners, I do have 2 things promised for this month. I have got to start picking up my slack. Of course, it's not super important. This isn't a job. I doubt it ever will be. But I've screwed up so many things, like my sleeping schedule and all that. I need to really get everything back together, so I want to kind of start with this. But yeah, thank you Tpot team. Thank you whoever's watching this, and I never know how to end these.
Why'd you get